fellow side hustlers, or those that are hustlers that are full time. I'm your host, Elijah, and I'm glad to be coming at you with another podcast. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about the science of follow up. I'm not sure who said it, but you probably heard this if you've been in any capacity building a side hustle. And I'm not talking about like the gig economy, I'm talking about like you're selling something, but the fortune is in the follow up. And that's just so true. It's more true now than ever before because I think that modern day, a lot of people, they just have this notion that I need to try and sell someone like in front of me right away. And if they say no, okay, on to the next person. When you're leaving a lot of money on the table and you might have been able to help that person, but the timing wasn't right. And just some follow up tactics or skills or systems could have gave both of y'all the result that would have been best for you. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this show. And I'm glad to say that I'm not going to be talking about it alone. The guest that I'm bringing on actually has a lot of experience in business just in general, and obviously sales. His name is Giuseppe Grammatico. He is a franchise veteran who helps executives find financial and time freedom through franchise ownership. Giuseppe is a successful corporate refugee who has worked on every side of franchising, from owning franchises and to help others use franchising to escape the corporate grind. Giuseppe lives in New Jersey with his beautiful wife and two children. Host of the Franchise Freedom podcast, currently working on his book that will guide you through the franchise process. So let's go ahead and get started.
Welcome to the Side Hustlers Society podcast, the place where you can find out more about the hustles that are best for you. And of course, make more money in the process. Elijah has been in the gig economy and freelance space for over 8 years and has done over 4,000 deliveries on Uber Eats. Has several video editing clients, many properties on Airbnb, runs multiple YouTube channels, and is the author of the best-selling book, The Anatomy of Financial Success. It's his mission to empower people with the tools needed to be successful. Now, welcome your host, the king of the side hustles, Elijah Bilel.
Okay, Giuseppe, we are on. I trust you're doing good today.
Doing well, Elijah. Yeah, no, doing very well. Really looking forward to the show.
Yeah, I know we chatted a little before we started the show, but it's interesting to see that we both. Well, I don't have a gaming background; I'm just a gamer. But it's interesting to hear that you have a background in gaming. So we had a little, chat about the good old days of gaming. Not to say there's nothing wrong with it now, but that's just when I was heavy into it.
Yeah, slight background. Yeah, I figured, while I was going back to school, why not give certain industries a shot, right? You give, experience kind of helps you figure out the direction you want to go in life. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, indeed. And speaking of direction, that's why I'm excited about this show in particular, because we're going to be talking about really just follow up, the science behind it, why it's so important, and maybe even talk about some scenarios of how to do it. Because this season is about lead generation, and a big part of cultivating the lead to eventually turn them into a client is the ability to follow up. I mean, I don't know what the exact percentages are. There probably are some stats to prove it, but like majority of prospects aren't going to say yes like on the first time. They're going to require some series of follow-ups, and I think a lot of people nowadays, when it comes to sales, they're not really taught that. We were taught back in the day that it's important to know what to do in both situations. If someone says yes, if someone says no, if someone just kind of doesn't answer, well, there's a system that you plug them in to move forward with the process. Now it's like, oh, they said no, well, write them off next. And you could be leaving a lot of money on the table, and you might have been able to help them with the service that you offer if you just had a bit more patience and knew how to follow up.
I absolutely agree. I mean, listen, your product, service, whatever you're offering may not be the right fit at that given point in time. It may never be the right fit, but the idea of follow up and what I call just staying top of mind, you never know. Depending on that person may have had a rough day, or you follow up and it's the weekend where maybe work aside, they're much more relaxed and open to your product or your service. But there is huge value in the follow-up, staying top of mind, and just reminding people that you're there, if they ever need anything.
Indeed. So before we actually get into the kind of like the follow-up portion of the podcast, I would ask if you want to, just kind of tell my audience about yourself. I know you have a podcast yourself called Franchise of Freedom,
Right.
but overall, like, what is your background when it comes to sales? Because I don't care what anyone says. The ultimate sell is selling a franchise to someone. If you can do that, I feel like you can do pretty much anything sales-wise.
Yeah, I mean, sales is not. I will say this: there's different types of sales, and sales is definitely not for everyone. For me, it was I was cold calling. I worked for a company, Payne Weber, later on UBS, and I really learned the art of the sale and exactly how to cold call and book appointments simply by doing the cold calls. And they were rough. That was not. It was 100 calls a night. It was after hours. People were getting home from work and eating dinner. So it wasn't easy, but it really, you kind of start building that tougher skin. And I slowly realized that sales was everything, whether it was door-to-door sales or cold calling or even networking. There's some type of sales component. And I think it's one of the most valuable skills you can learn. On a side note, when I had my internship at Payne Weber, I asked one of the brokers, one of the old school guys, been around forever. And I said, what would you recommend? He's like, I recommend quitting and going to sell tires at Firestone across the street. That's going to be your true sales. You're not going to learn a lot about the financial industry, but he goes, you have plenty of time for that. You want to learn about sales. So, and so that's how I learned. I cold called, became a financial advisor, and then shortly after sold to financial advisors, and then decided corporate America wasn't for me and decided to start my own franchise. And it's been close to 20 years since I started franchising. Now I actually help people find and invest in franchises. So I've always liked sales. I've learned a lot over the years, and it's constantly this learning process, this evolving thing.
It's interesting that you say that, because I didn't actually know that you were also a financial advisor. Pretty interesting industry, heavily regulated. I was looking at becoming one myself, but I've told this story in other podcasts, so I'll keep it abbreviated. But essentially, they're not a fan of the gig economy nowadays, like the Uber and the Lyft and DoorDash and stuff like that. They don't even really want you to be driving for them. That's one of the things you have to fill out when you're actually applying to get certified.
Right.
And given the fact that one of my channels, actually this channel, it was originally called the Uber Lifestyle. Then I changed it to the App Lifestyle when I expanded into other content. And it finally evolved into the Side Hustler Society, where we cover side hustles in general. But at the time, it was known as the Uber Lifestyle. And I had to essentially get rid of the channel. And the channel was bringing in about $3,500 per month at the time. So, yeah, that didn't really make any sense.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of regulation what you can do if you're a financial advisor. Even if you wanted to own a franchise or a business, you got to get that approved. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of red tape, a lot of things you got to go through. So don't have that as much flexibility.
Yeah, that's why I decided ultimately it's probably better not to get it. And I just say what everyone says, not a financial advisor, entertainment purposes only.
Right.
And I could actually talk about anything I wanted, as opposed to being narrowed down to what I could talk about, and getting rid of something that was generating a bunch of money on a regular basis.
Yeah, I agree. I actually tried getting financial advisors on the show, and I had to get lists of questions approved, and I'm like, that's going to kill the flow. It just wasn't worth. And I get it. We're not giving financial advice. We're just talking about, the different people you should have in your team that can advise you on accounting, financial advice, and things like that. But yeah, it's just very, very limited in certain areas. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm not here to bash the financial advisor setup.
Not at all.
I understand why it is set up like that, because if it wasn't, a lot of people end up getting scammed or robbed. So I do understand why.
Right.
But kind of moving on from there, we can go ahead and slide into the follow-up portion of the podcast. So I would ask you, in your opinion, like, why is follow-up so important, like, in the sales process? Because it's essentially addressing people who just try and sell someone once and they say no, or they don't get a response, and then they just move on to the next person. Why is follow-up just so important in the sales process?
Yeah, follow-up is very important because, as we were talking about before, maybe that person clicked on your ad, submitted information, and the timing wasn't right. I was just talking to a gentleman that, it was a Monday. He reached out to me, and on Thursday lost his job. So, his priority wasn't maybe to speak with me, but to figure out, okay, well, what are my next steps? How much money do we have in the bank? Like, it really hit that person really hard. So, there's always the value is definitely in the follow-up, in that someone may not call you back. Maybe it was timing, or maybe they felt like they weren't a good fit, which is also okay. So part of the follow-up, and I think the value is to bring value to the table. So in our case, a lot of people will for example, rule themselves out of franchising because they're like, I don't have $1 million to invest, and I don't have, I'm not interested in owning anything in fast food. And that's okay. And that's a preconceived notion in franchising. It's not all fast food, but that's what people think of. They think of McDonald's, they think of Chick-fil-A. So part of that follow-up is, hey, I know we haven't spoken yet, but did you know that there are 4,000 franchise companies that, happen to be in 70 plus industries? Majority don't fall in fast food. So it's that educational piece where I've received numerous calls back saying, I didn't realize there are franchises under 100,000. I didn't realize that you don't have to be in food. So I think that education piece is crucial. And, not everyone will call you back saying the timing isn't right. They may ignore you. So for me, where I've had the most success is a monthly newsletter. I drop a monthly newsletter. I used to do it weekly. I felt like that was maybe too much, and it'll vary and you'll get different feedback. And I don't know, there's no exact answer, but franchising is not everyone's fit to own a business, and you need some substantial capital to get started. So I do a monthly newsletter. It's these are our last shows. These are some things to think about, and this is a franchise spotlight of the month. And I think that alone, where I'll put in there saying, hey, if you want to have a chat or just have a question, give us a call. If you can think of one person that could benefit, if you can forward that email to someone else, and that helps to expand the reach a little bit. So if all 1,000 emails did that, you would have another 1,000 people potentially in your database. So, staying top of mind. And you know what? Sometimes your emails get flagged to spam and junk. Sometimes they missed it because it was buried with all the other stuff. So, it's kind of like, you're constantly following up, and eventually, whether it be phone call, I do phone call, I do email, I have an AI caller just on that initial call. And I've implemented just direct mail. Who gets a postcard anymore in the mail? I get about easily 200 emails a day, but how many letters do I get aside from, bills and junk? It's rare that I get a postcard or anything. So that's the first thing I open. So postcards have been, something I've added recently, and I've had some good success with people at least acknowledging that they received it.
Okay. So it sounds like you kind of use content creation to serve as the conduit to keep following up in an organic way. Would it be safe to say that?
100%. No one wants to hear I'm following up, I'm checking in. I mean, how many times have you heard that? Checking in on what? So it's really, when I do make a call, do you have any feedback from our last call? In many cases, no. Call went well. I haven't heard back. Been busy with work. Well, okay, not a problem. Is this still a priority? And if it is, you had really had concerns about funding, and I know you're limited on time. I created a podcast specifically on funding with the CDO of Benetrends. Can I send that to you? And it's 30 minutes uninterrupted, and you can listen in and hear directly from the source. And people value that. They listen to it at time that works for them, and maybe that's after hours. They may have a family. Kids are going to sleep, and they can listen to that call at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then maybe call you, later on in the week saying, I now have a better understanding. Would like to schedule a call. So content creation, I think, it could be lead gen, lead nurture, and just staying, following up and staying top of mind. I think it's a great excuse to get in front of people.
Yeah, it's kind of like you said, like no one really cares about the, hey, I'm calling the follow up kind of like rhetoric. Like even in my early days, I never really used that approach. Now I would still call to follow up, but I wouldn't be robotic like that. Usually I talk to the person enough to find some common ground, kind of like right before the show, we found out that we both used to be, involved in gaming.
Right.
So like if we had, if I was prospecting you, like let's say 10 years ago, and I'm trying to sell you something, when I would call to follow up, I would normally start the call with, hey, I'm actually playing this game and, it's such and such, and it's actually real good or it's real crap or something. And I would ask what you've been playing lately, and you would tell me, and we have a little, banter. Then I'd bring up maybe the sales stuff later in the conversation, but not just this generic, like, hey, so I'm calling to follow up. Are you still interested? Like, that's when people start ignoring you.
Right. Because you're not bringing anything, they're either they weren't ready or they're kind of on the fence. So in their mind, they're like, I'll reach out to Elijah when I'm ready. Whereas if I can bring an idea to the table, maybe you don't have the 5 minutes to discuss it now, but if I can send that to you via a more convenient way, a convenient vehicle, which is a podcast, a blog, anything, a one-page checklist or cheat sheet, people appreciate that. And it's, on top of it, I'll mail them a copy of my book. That stays top of mind. They may sit on a desk or nightstand, for many years to come. I've had books on my nightstand for many years that I, on occasion will read a chapter here and there. So it just stays top of mind. It's a constant reminder. But, if they haven't called you back, either they're not interested or they're stuck somewhere. And sometimes they don't know how to essentially communicate that, right? That there's this nagging concern that they can't really describe or kind of bring up on a call. So in our space, it's the risk of losing your investment. It's the risk of the unknown. So I did a show saying, these are the top 15 concerns I get on a daily basis. I created it just for you in our last call. Listen in. And if you are interested in having a second call, let me know. If not, no worries. Thought this would help. And addressing the concerns like, what's the risk? What's the what kind of expectations can I make financially and things like that. And although we can't get into specific numbers, it's a business. I think addressing them and not sugarcoating, being very direct, like this is a franchise, you can lose money. This is a franchise, you can expand. These are certain, expectations. I think that's super helpful. And I wish that was the info that I received when I was first looking at companies.
Mm-hmm. Right. So speaking of which, do you have like some kind of system in place to track where a person is in the sales process? Or is it more, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, or are you kind of letting your content do most of the heavy lifting? And then from that point, they kind of treat it like inbound marketing to a certain degree, like, hey, they're going to reach out once they've received enough content, they proceed to be efficient enough to go ahead and get started.
Yeah. So the podcast I'm putting out there once a week, and that monthly newsletter will grab all 4 podcasts. We'll have, as I mentioned, some tips and some things to kind of a brand to maybe consider. Again, that may not be a good fit, but it's our spotlight. So that's going out to everyone in our system until they opt out. For new leads, they will get a free copy of our book digitally. And the email cadence and follow-up is a little heavier. It may be 2 to 3 times a week. So we use Go High Level. So 2 to 3 times a week via email and text. And then that second week, it drops off to maybe once or twice a week. And then it goes to weekly. And there's a series. There's, I believe, a 10 email series. And then from there, and that's constantly being updated. And then we'll, after that, they go into kind of this monthly newsletter bucket where they'll get that newsletter every month. So a little heavier on the upfront, especially getting them that information, because they may have these preconceived notions that, I don't have, I only have, $10,000 in savings, but they may not realize their old traditional IRA that has a few $100K tucked away is something they can use. So it's more educational. So we'll provide that information. The big one is what do I charge? Because some people love the service, but they're scared to even ask what we charge. And the great part is we don't charge anything. It's our fee is paid from the franchise company, like a realtor. So providing that, the top kind of 5 concerns that come up, we like to kind of just, send those out via email, and then remind, hey, if you want additional resources, we have, a couple hundred podcasts recorded. You can type in a topic and search the website. So constant that value add, but we kind of taper off after the first 3 or so weeks to that monthly newsletter. So, is it the perfect follow-up? Not certain. If people are really, I kind of follow Alex Hormozy, and we talk about, I have nothing to sell. We educate on franchising. We put you in front of franchise companies, but if the fit's not there, it's not there. We're not here to push you into something, sell you a product or service. This is the value we bring to the table. I've been in your shoes. I've owned franchises and non-franchise, and this is how we can help. So we wait for that person to raise their hand, kind of meet them where they're at. And some people are at different stages, and we'll meet them. Hey, I can only talk once every other week. No problem. What questions do you have? So.
Okay. So one thing that you did, and this might be universal to a lot of businesses, they could probably do the same thing, but your means of getting the person's email, it sounds like people could benefit from learning what are the myths in their industry.
Right.
And just offering to address those myths in some kind of form, and that can serve as essentially an email list magnet. Would you say?
Yes, we have used that. What are the top myths, and the fast food is been one. So absolutely, it's not all fast food. You don't have to be a multimillionaire. So that, to me, I kind of look at those myths and why people don't move forward. And yes, I think that's like the best content you can put out there. Here are the top 5 myths. If you want to get into detail, I did a show on the top 15 myths I get. Take a look at it. But that'll help them kind of qualify themselves if the fit's there.
Right. So one thing about a follow-up is it's always a constant battle between scale and personalization. And when you go too far to one end, it's like you lose something. So in your opinion, is personalization so important, or is scale more important when it comes to follow-up? Because personalization, obviously, is warmer. You might have a higher conversion rate, but you're not reaching as many people. And scale is the scenario where if it's not personalized at all, you seem too generic, like it's just sent out to a bunch of people, and it might have a much lower conversion rate.
Yeah, I mean, it's you want quantity in there, right? People always want leads and more subscribers. We can double your downloads on your podcast, and it's like, well, do I really want, that's great. It's great for reach, but I want people that are qualified, that are interested in learning about franchises. So, when you are putting that information out there, it's for everyone to consume. I think where you can tailor it, and something that I do is, maybe the email is a little bit more generic because you're talking about the same thing, such as who's a good fit for a franchise or whatever the topic is. And then I like to follow up with a phone call, a little bit more personalization. On occasion, I haven't been doing this as much, but I plan on picking up, is using like a Vidyard. You can even use a StreamYard and just do a quick video. Hey, I was thinking about you. Our last conversation, you talked about X, Y, and Z. I wanted to let you know there is a brand that we just started working with that falls exactly in kind of the characteristics of what you're looking for in a business. Is it worth having a follow-up conversation, and then leaving it on them, making it super convenient. You put, well, how do I reach you? Are you free this day? Here's my calendar link, and I'll put it in there. So my calendar link is live. So I think it's a combination effort, if that makes sense. You got maybe a little bit more of a generic email, and then follow up with the phone call, maybe even that video call, which is, if you have the time, I think that's the route to go. And you make it a priority and just say, hey, we spoke a year ago, would love to see kind of where you're at. You were in between jobs, wanted to see if the timing was better. Would you be open to a call? And you leave it on them. But I think, people forget, people tend to go in different directions. So you make it easy for them to book a call, to make it easy for them to gather the information. And you're very clear. If you follow They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, you make it very clear on the website. What are your fees? Who do you serve, and who do you help? Where are your resources? Kind of we call it just a resource library, educational library. You keep it simple and easy to navigate, and and very easy for them to book a call. And that's all people are looking for, in my opinion.
Right. I think you said the magic word, which is convenience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they have to dig through emails and how do I book a call with Giuseppe, that then it's like, you know what, if they have to spend more than 5 minutes doing that, odds are they're not going to book a call. But you want it to be really simple. So for example, when you do a follow-up, hey, I understand the timing may not be right. This is a show we did. And then whenever, whatever time works for you, our calendar goes out 30 days. This is our 30-minute booking link for our next call. You're not having them, having to send a couple emails to get that. Make it convenient. This is the link for the show. This is the link for the calendar. What else do you need? I thought of you as well. Even if it's an article off the website, here's a direct article. Take a look at it. Made me think of you. Let me know your thoughts. So simple is, I think, is better, in my opinion.
Okay. And, good natural question that kind of follows up on that, no pun intended. But what mistakes do you feel like people are making that they may not even realize they're doing, that's kind of destroying their follow-up and likewise their ability to prospect the client, which may cause them to lose them?
Yeah, I think they're forgetting to follow up. That's killing a lot of people. And I think they're forgetting to follow up because they're so enamored by creating lead flow, buying leads and all that, when they may have a database of 2,000 people that are not getting nurtured. So it's not done intentionally, but they're forgetting those people. They're relying just on email. It's, there's years ago when I started my podcast in 2020, the gentleman that helped me set up kept using the word omnipresence. Never even heard of the word prior to that. So I go, what do you mean by omnipresence? And he's like, well, you want to stay in front of people, and not everyone checks their emails every day. I know my kids don't check their emails every day. And I know others that check email once a month. So this sense of omnipresence where maybe it's not a direct follow-up, but, having a podcast, posting on Meta, Facebook and Instagram or TikTok and X and all the other platforms. When people get home, what platforms are they on? And I think staying on those platforms and then redirecting them and just saying, hey, if you want more information, you can call me or go to the website. I think that helps as well because it's convenient. They're already on Instagram. They're already, following certain people. You may just, cover a topic that is, something that they've been trying to tackle. Like, how do you keep a job and have a side hustle, right? Or have a business on the side. Those are the things, like they just don't know where to kind of start. So omnipresence is huge, but going back to your question, not having that system. So I believe in automating where you can. And then a mistake that I made is, creating tasks in your CRM. If someone says, like, call me in 6 weeks, schedule a follow-up 6 weeks. And then when you do call or email, say, as per our last conversation, you said to call you in 6 weeks. Sometimes I'll say, you know what, 6 weeks, great. Let's book it on the calendar now. That way it'll be on the calendar. You'll get a reminder and we'll talk 6 weeks from today. Great if they're open to it. But if they're not open to it, those tasks, those reminders are going to be huge because you're going to forget. There's a million things going on in your business. I have no employees, so I have no one reminding me to call a certain person.
Right. With you being in the podcast space, you're probably familiar with Patrick Ben-David and Valuetainment. And he, I guess he still does, but he's kind of pulled back on the business content. But one video he put out a good while ago was he's talking about how to increase your sales or 10 tips to increase sales. He said, don't be, I forgot the phrase he used, but essentially he's saying from a sales perspective, don't be a one-night stand. Like people usually prospect someone once and they either buy or they don't buy. And regardless of which one they do, then they don't ever hear from them again. But if you don't be a one-night stand, per se, from sales perspective, you're long-term, then you'll be great in sales because someone that you're prospecting, you'll be prospecting them for a full year. But then a year later, they might buy your service because the timing lights up. So don't be a one-night stand in that regard.
Absolutely. I mean, that's, it's as we were saying before, it's follow up. And when you talked about, customization in the Go High level, my CRM, you can tag people like, this person is only looking for resales, or this person is only looking for soccer related types of businesses and that kind of thing. And you can do searches for that. So you can really, do a search term for soccer or whatever that term is, resale, and you could maybe pull up a list of 12 and then do an individual call, email, or postcard campaign. But absolutely, the follow-ups there, even though you offered a call and they weren't ready to move forward, throw another idea at them. I've called people saying, you know what, maybe the timing isn't right, but someone that you should talk to is talk to a funding company. They'll do a free analysis. They may be able to refer you to an attorney, but you'll have a better idea that for when you are ready, how to put together your financials. These are people that maybe don't know how to calculate a net worth or how to put it all together. So offer a value add, offer a person that can maybe help them at no cost or for a discounted rate. They'll remember that. So when timing is better, they'll absolutely come back and say, you know what, Giuseppe helped me, Elijah really gave you some value adds and some things to think about. I'm going to reach out to them and maybe, have that second call.
Indeed. So Giuseppe, I will say this. I think this is great for people that what we've been talking about. I would say it falls in the intermediate sales territory or maybe advanced beginner. But how about we take the conversation to before, like we had our podcast, or before we were content creators, and we're gonna be looking at the freelancer who's a graphic designer or an electrician or the trade I bring to the table is video editing, so video editor, and like they don't have like any podcasts or content creation. Like, what did they do in terms of follow up? So, how about we play around with like two scenarios? And the first scenario is essentially when you're prospecting someone, but you don't get a response. You send like the first whatever you do first, they haven't responded, but you did get their information. What's the next step that they should be doing follow-up wise?
Well, first, you get them in the system and you put some rules together. So maybe if you're in the beginning stages, you put a 30-day reminder in there, something that I do, and to call them or contact them again. Going back to omnipresence, another thing I used to do, and this is assuming I have nothing, I have no content, no show, no book. I'll go in and maybe follow them on LinkedIn, send them a message. A big part of, I think, my success is follow-up. I respond to every email, every text, every message. Unless it's, you get some negative comments sometimes online that are just off the wall. That's a whole nother show. But following up with people. Some people don't check email, but they do check LinkedIn. So I'll do that and try to, with the goal of them to potentially accept the request or follow me, and then they'll see, okay, well, maybe they're not checking the email, but they're seeing some of the posts that I'm putting out there. And you don't have to post every day. It could just be a thought or a post a week, and they're seeing that. So you're kind of you're dripping on people. But if it's me breaking in, I'm a big fan of who not what you know. So for me is getting out there and who has connections and going to the Chamber of Commerce. I can go
highly underrated.
What's that?
Oh, that's highly underrated. Going to the Business Chamber of Commerce.
It's you're doing business with potentially with other businesses. So you can go to a plumber and hey, I offer drain cleaning services. A plumber usually doesn't get involved in that. They have thousands of customers that you can potentially service and offer that product. And now you're in front of all these people and they're doing all the work for you, and that giving you that list of people that, maybe a potential customer. So that's one way to leverage your time, not have to have this major email list. I wouldn't say I have a major email list, but I started with 0 when I first started. I went to friends and family and asked for referrals and things like that way before, any podcast or anything was put together. So, when people ask where to start as well, a daily video, 60 seconds or less on LinkedIn or on one of the channels until, you start to get a little bit more comfortable. Your first videos are probably going to stink. If you're editing or not, you're going to be deer in headlights, as I was, and just making mistakes or maybe not looking at the camera or whatever the case may be. So get your reps, get your practice in, but leverage your relationships around you. Who Not How is a book by Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach, great book. And you can really start to leverage some of the contacts you have. If you don't have a lot of contacts, you're starting out, you're young, you're out of school, join a chamber, start networking with other business owners, start networking with your competition. There's plenty to go around, and there's always people sharing ideas. But if you are posting and people are commenting, respond. Like it, respond, appreciate it. What other questions do people have on this topic? The worst thing you do is post stuff and not engage with your audience. And obviously that helps with the algorithm. So just, talk to people. I have goals to talk to 5 new people a day. Grab their information, their email, and ask, hey, not who do you know, but is there one person that may benefit from some of this, creating an email list to put together a monthly newsletter on time management, time blocking, whatever the case may be. One person's, and you start off with maybe 2 contacts, turns into 4, turns into 8, 16, and it keeps growing. So I think you start there. You're not salesy. You're networking. You're telling people, hey, I'm new to this, and being open and honest. You may think I'm crazy for asking, but I'm trying to grow my business. I just opened up. I think people will definitely help and do anything they can to make you successful.
Right. You brought up you brought up the Chamber of Commerce, and I do want to add something to that. I personally haven't done this before, but I do have friends that have done it, and I've seen them change. I've seen them really get things off the ground. But actually going to your local Toastmasters too. There is a caveat. It needs to be in a big, like whatever the biggest city is in your metroplex, go to that one, because there are small like Toastmaster groups. And that's fine if you just want to learn about public speaking, but we want networking to be in the play too. And if you go to the main one in your metroplex, the big one in the biggest city, that's when it's gonna be a lot more people there. But it plays more of a networking role in addition to learning how to public speak. And there's usually influential people there, and they see you're just getting started. They see you're sincere, so they'll probably pull some strings, maybe make some connections for you as you grow with your self-development. So that's I think it's a huge missed opportunity that a lot of people starting out don't leverage. So yeah, in addition,
I like that.
Yeah.
And people want to, genuinely people want to help. And if you're in the chamber, just say going back to the chamber, you're in the chamber of your town. Businesses want to, refer to local businesses, and they'll do everything they can. And don't be okay be okay, to initiate. What I mean by initiate is that, maybe you're networking, you're trying to get referrals. Go out and be proactive and just say, you know what, there's so-and-so that can use, maybe it's a financial advisor, and there's so-and-so that could definitely use some help with their finances. I'd like to refer you to so-and-so. You initiate the conversation with a referral of someone that maybe can benefit from their services, and they may not be a good fit. They may not decide to move forward, but it's a genuine way to start that conversation with potential new business. So don't be afraid to say, I know we just met and this is our first conversation, but given the space you're in, there may be a friend of mine or family member that can benefit from your services. That goes a long way. And if you can do that, they may reciprocate and come back and say, you know what, I really appreciate that. It worked, it didn't work out, whatever the case may be, which brought up so-and-so that may be a good fit for your services, and kind of refer back. So don't be afraid to initiate those conversations with the referral. I've done that before, and it's not in every case that I receive a referral, and you're not going in with that intention. But I think it's a great way to lead a conversation, especially being new to the area or new to the chamber or the Toastmasters.
Indeed. What's up, everyone? Hopefully you're enjoying the broadcast as it's airing right now. One of the most important things that you have to get down if you're going to be a full-time hustler or even be a side hustler is the ability to identify what types of income are involved in your industry and how to create the other types. And I'm not just talking about income as in how the IRS defines them, passive income, portfolio income, etc. On a fundamental level, there are 4 types of income, and these 4 types of income are based on how active that income is and how steady or unsteady that income is. If you want to know the sciences of how to identify the different types of income, how to build those sources of income, as well as the advantages and disadvantages of each type of income, you want to get chapter 5 of my Amazon best-selling book, The Anatomy of Financial Success. In it, I talk about something I created called the money magnifier that allows you the ability to identify what types of income there are out there, what income you should be working towards based on whatever goals, objectives you have for yourself or for your business. Go to www.fachapters.com and you can get chapter 5 of The Anatomy of Financial Success for free. With that being said, let's get back to the broadcast. I know a lot of people will probably be wondering your take on this, but there's only so much protocol follow-up you can do before it's like, okay, when do I pull the plug on this operation? If they're not responding, like, when do I stop? And we got to take into account, like, we don't have like these audiences that we built up. So no podcast, no book, nothing like that. When should they cut their losses with a potential client and just go ahead and move on? Or should they not? Should they just keep trying?
I mean, if you got the email, you let them unsubscribe on their own. No matter how big that list is, you don't need thousands of emails. You can have 5 emails and wait for them to unsubscribe, and that's one option. For me, I'm notorious if people are just not responding. I'll do 6 months, depending how the call went, or depending on their situation. If there was a major move or something going on in life, I'll do that 12-month follow up. And after so many times, if I look at my notes, left message, if I'm not getting any response, after maybe those 2 or 3 6-month follow ups, I'm not getting anything. I'll just discontinue creating those tasks. The timing may just not be right. Franchising or business ownership may not be right, and keep them on the email for them to unsubscribe. The content is out there, so I'll tell them, hey, if you don't like email, you can follow me here, and there. And that's it. And then, you, as I mentioned, at least they're getting the email. That's something you can control. Social media, you don't own. You can control your posting, but you don't actually own those platforms. They can disappear overnight. Yep. So that's why I really like email. But, you mix it up. Maybe you you send a postcard over or whatever. I guess you can throw something at them as well. But now I'm all kidding aside. You mail a postcard. I've mailed people books. Hey, I thought of you. This book may benefit you. Would love to know your thoughts on the book. And that alone can sometimes trigger a callback or a referral, or whatever the case may be. But to answer your question, maybe I stop calling, but dripping and following up via email doesn't stop until they unsubscribe, or just tell me, hey, stop sending me. I have no interest in this area. No problem. You can just right in your CRM, you can unsubscribe from all. And if they ever want to initiate a conversation, they can always reach out. They have your information.
Okay. So I'm kind of following. I got to use a different synonym because I'm saying follow up too many times. But
we can use it amongst us, but don't say that when you're talking to somebody.
Yeah, but kind of following up on that question, do you ever clean up your email list in terms of cold subscribers? Because I do know that. Well, I won't say no, because it really depends on the business and the person. But some people believe that, okay, well, if you have too many cold subscribers, it can start to affect where your emails land. Like, you might start landing in promotions tab more often, or updates tab. And generally speaking, we don't want to be there. We ideally want to be in the primary tab. So people will, every 90 days or 3 months, clean up the email list, where maybe they'll subscribe the cold subscribers to an email campaign, basically saying hey, I haven't heard from you in a while, and you still want to receive it. And click here if you do. And those that don't click after about a week, that is, remove them off the list to kind of keep the open rates and conversion rates high. I'm assuming, based on what you told me, you don't do any of that, or do you do some of that?
I really don't, because usually to opt in, they're agreeing and checking all that information off. Yes, do we get unsubscribes all the time? They agree to the information. Maybe the information isn't relevant, or they thought it was. I've had people download the info, book a call, have no idea why we're speaking. They're just completely distracted. I guess I don't know. I wouldn't book a call with anyone if I didn't know what the call was about. So I can't say I do a lot of cleanup, and maybe that is something I need to do a better job at. But we're not buying lists and things like that. So where it's like, well, why the heck is Giuseppe calling me? They're opting in from an ad or a podcast, or they sent me an email to be added to the list, or they're just signing up on the website. But maybe I do. That's a good point. Maybe I do need to speak with our marketing company and figure out a way to maybe clean up the database every quarter. So that I don't know much about, and that's something I got to look into.
Okay.
I'm curious to your thoughts if you have any specific recommendations, but that's one area I would say I'm not too familiar with.
Well, yeah, there's the email marketing book by a guy named Ankh Siegel.
Okay.
And he's the one that kind of, I don't want to say he's the email marketing pioneer of the modern age, but he does have a lot of innovative takes.
Okay.
And he's the person that kind of, and people regurgitate what he says. He recommends that, you clean up your email list every quarter to 3 months for the reasons that he said. And I've tried both approaches. I've just let people unsubscribe on their own, but I've also taken the approach where I clean up my email list. And I will say that right now I do use the approach of cleaning up my email list every 3 to 6 months. I don't do it as frequently because if you do it too much, there is an opportunity cost.
Right.
Because someone could be going through just a struggle season in their life, and it is not checking emails for like 6 months. But after that passes, they kind of get back to checking the emails, and there you are. And
Right.
then they start consuming your content, and then they might book a call with you. So I find that 6 months is a good kind of balance between the two. So I've been doing it every 6 months. And so far, the results have been pretty good because I don't want to see low open rates and low conversion rates. And if there's something I could do to change that so I can have better data, so I'm always looking to improve. I vouch for that approach, just not as frequently as Ankh says. He's more so every quarter to 3 months. I think that's a little too frequent.
Mm. Yeah, that's I gotta say, if there's one area I have to look into, that's that area. I do sometimes people will download my book. I'll follow up via phone call, and they may just say, I just wanted the book. I'm not interested. And I'll just say, just so you know, there's a few follow-ups I can remove you from. I shouldn't say, there you go. I'm guilty of it now, saying the word follow-up. There's a few email that you'll get, or we could just, if you'd like, add you to our monthly newsletter, which you checked off on. Are you still okay with that? And sometimes they'll just say, no, I'm not interested whatsoever. Please remove me, and then I'll go ahead and unsubscribe them as well. So, but I don't have the ability to call every single person that comes into our world. And even if I did, I'm not getting a hold of everyone. But I do throw it out there to kind of set the expectation. You're not going to get a million emails from me. There'll be quite a few up front, but after that will be monthly. So if I get their permission, great. If technically I already agreed to it, but to your point, I don't want to go into spam or promotions and things like that. So yeah, that's my homework for this week, is to spend a little time in this area. But I appreciate that.
Hey, no problem. So if I remember right, the book is called The Email Marketing Lifeline by Ankh Siegel. It's
Okay.
a pretty good read.
I have to check that out.
Yeah. But you've kind of already answered this, but if you want to elaborate on it,
Sure.
If we kind of work with scenario 2, because scenario 1, we talked about how if you don't get a response from someone, now what if you do get a response from someone initially, but they decide to say no? Like, is there any magic number of times you should be following up with that person after they've said no, or should you even follow up at all?
It depends on the reason. So I do have, for those people that we actually get on the call, we have a kind of a pipeline that has 30 different stages. So intro call completed, intro call missed or canceled. Did they send back the questionnaire or not? And every time they move along, I can track them, meaning, okay, they're making progress. This is what's still owed before booking the next call. And that kind of deal. So that is crucial in any CRM because it gives you kind of a visual, kind of a bird's eye view of your business and where everyone is tracking. who they should be talking to, how, at what point they'll be making a final decision. So that's really important. But as far as we have the intro call, we decide it's not a good fit. We need to figure out why not the fit. Is it because that person's goal is to leave their job in a year to run the business full time? Great. I may make a suggestion like, let's do this. Let's touch base in 6 months. I'll schedule the call or create the task. But scheduling call is always a priority. But in the meantime, the timing isn't right to open because maybe they're trying to save a little bit more money. But in that 12-month period, or at least a 6-month period until we talk again, educate. And I kind of let them know what to expect on our end, keeping the door open to say, hey, if anything changes, you decide to quit tomorrow, call me up. We'll get back on the calendar. Some people that'll just say, I have no interest whatsoever. And I'll say, is it timing? Would you be open to getting a better understanding on franchising? Some people are they don't know why they signed up for the call. I unsubscribe them. There's zero follow-up. We have a dead lead tag, which basically I created that so that it automatically unsubscribes and removes them from the pipeline. So they're not getting any emails from me. But I always, again, keep the door open to say, I'm going to unsubscribe you. But if you do want to contact me, you're going to have to reach out to me directly or, comment on any of my content. So everyone has a different reason. In some cases, it's just I need 3 months to get my credit score up and get a little additional savings. Great. I treat everyone the same. You're still going to get the same content because it's all educational. And we'll talk. You said 90 days. Let's talk in 45 days, right in the middle. Let's schedule that call. So it's case by case, depending on the situation. Hey, listen, some people are just not a good fit, or they are a good fit, but they don't have any money to invest in the business. And we may just say, either, you have the option. If you don't want any future follow-up, let me just at least send you the funding email, and then we'll unsubscribe you. You can always reach out, but this will give you a resource, that you can look at for funding options. So going back, that was a long version of saying it's case by case. It may be unsubscribing. It may be creating tasks or future calendar appointments, or events down the road. But figure out kind of where they're at, why the fit isn't there, why they're not interested, and figure out the next steps accordingly based off their feedback.
Okay, so it sounds like for the audience listening, there's going to be a few different scenarios of why someone's saying no. So once you find out what all the scenarios are, each no is going to fit within one of those scenarios or categories, and just have a game plan for each one of those categories on what the next step is going to be for the potential client or prospect.
Absolutely. And set the expectation. You'll still get a monthly email from me. You'll get a few extra emails, educational emails. Are you okay with that? We're not selling that franchising is for everyone. We want people to rule themselves out, right? We have to, some people just can't handle the risk, and that's okay. Some people feel like the grass is always greener on the other side. It's not, if either business ownership is for you or not. So we don't want to go very aggressive, but we also don't want to blindside people. So we'll tell them this is what to expect. But ultimately, if you ever want to speak, my door is always open, and we can always connect. I've had people reach out to me 5 years later saying, I was going through a divorce, bad time in life between divorce, selling the home and moving, changing jobs, whatever the case may be. I'm in a better spot. Great. Let's pick up where we left off. What's new, what's happening in your world. Why are we speaking today? So you never know, when someone will reach out or even refer you to someone. We were on a boat the other day, and the person I was with was in the franchising space, and we had a common referral. They were looking for a professional that we were able to refer over. You never know. Never met the person before. It was a friend of a friend. We just happened to have someone that could be a good fit in order to help them with their business. So just offer the value, and be very very clear, very open on what to expect. And I think if you keep the door open and just say, I know we're not a good fit, but if anything changes or if you'd like to learn more, some people just say, I don't think franchising is the right fit. We've had the conversation, which is completely fine. But I'm still interested in owning a business. I work with business brokers throughout the country that we can put them in touch with. If financials aren't there, we work with funding companies there. There's no cost to these services up front. So take advantage of the resources. I'm going through crazy time in life. You let us know how we can help. Can you refer an attorney? Actually, yes, my personal attorney. We're in the same state. I'd recommend reaching out to them. So, when you get all that figured out, give us a call. We'll pick up where we left off. And, do yourself a favor. If you're spending time with someone and have a CRM, jot some notes down, because the odds are you're going to forget. So when you do follow up, when you do call that person, like, hey, how is your family? How is your son? Last time we spoke, he had broken his foot playing soccer. Or his leg? Is he doing better? It's great to have those notes, because I wish I could remember everything. You can't. So notes are crucial. They can be searchable, and they're constant reminders, and great ways to open up the conversation.
Right. Yeah. That notes thing is very important. And in my opinion, I think that's what's going to separate you from so many other people that's demanding their attention. The fact that you actually just took a mental note of what was going on in their life. And you're just asking for details on what was going on, whether they just had a child and, has your son started walking yet? Or, I don't want to say small talk, but I'll go ahead and use the word small talk. But you can have some small talk before you get into the business. But it just shows that you actually care about what's going on in their life.
Agreed. I mean, and when people, and also when people reach out to you, when I was in the financial, was a financial advisor back in the day. All right, they met with you and they want to know kind of where to put their money. Well, I don't know where to put your money. What's your situation? Are you working? Do you have family? Are you looking to create a legacy? Like, there's so many things that I have to know about that person. Same thing with franchise ownership. Open up. Tell me about yourself. Yes, it's exciting to know what investments or the hot stock or the hot franchise and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it may not be a fit for you. It's something that maybe is too high risk, or the investment's too great, much higher than you're comfortable with. But let me, why do you want to own a business? Why, what type of stocks are you looking for? Maybe you shouldn't be owning any stock if you're very risk adverse and you're in your 60s ready to retire. Maybe a mutual fund, maybe neither of those options. Maybe you want to be in fixed income. So those questions are not just, it is going to be some small talk in there, and you're looking for, some areas that you can connect on. Maybe there's some similarities, like we talked about the video game industry, but why are you doing this? Because we also want to make sure it's relevant in your life. Your life is different than mine. I may have kids, you may not. You may want to create a legacy for them, or put money aside in a 529 plan for their college costs and expenses. So it's crucial, to really have the whole picture in order to truly help somebody.
Right. Or if they're single and they don't ever want to have any children, like
right.
They have a Roth IRA, or if they're a business owner, have they looked at the benefits of a SEP IRA? Like, you got to know the whole scenario.
I agree. And you don't know what you don't know. And that's where you bring value and say, in a small business, you should create a successor plan. If you get hit by a car tomorrow, who does the business go to, followed by who actually runs the business? It could be two different people. I didn't even know I needed that. Me personally, in my 20s, I had no idea. So I go, well, who, I don't know what I don't know. I spoke with someone. They said, go to this attorney. He'll do all your estate planning. Never even heard the phrase estate planning. I was 25, 26 at the time. So he said, these are all the things that exist out there. You don't need all of them. You need about 6 or 7 of these. Living will. What happens if you end up in the hospital, and, should you be hooked up to a ventilator or not? And, it kind of gives you this whole list, which is kind of scary to think about, but it's good to have them in place now. And makes a lot of other people's lives easier in the event something happens to you and you can't, respond or anything. So you don't know what is out there. So it's good to bring these resources to people. Say, hey, talk to this attorney. He'll walk, they will walk you through all the documents and the setups based off your situation, and as well as your state, because every state has different laws. So there's a lot of professionals out there that people had no idea. They just thought you needed a will, but there's so many other documents that are needed that will greatly help in the event something were to happen to you. So that alone, I've made so many intros there, and people will say, "Hey, I really appreciate it. Now I'm now ready to continue our conversation." So,
Right. And speaking of conversation, from what I can tell, you really leverage email and actually a phone call in your business when it comes to, I would say, lead generation and lead cultivation. Do you leverage texting in any way, or is that not really your style?
yep, we do texting. You're not copying and pasting your emails into text. You got to keep them a little bit shorter and remind people who you are, especially if they don't have you saved in the context versus an email. So, so yes, I do texting, and especially with confirmations for appointments to minimize the number of no shows, the link that you need to join, and things like that. So yes, we absolutely do texting. Sometimes we'll do a little bit of a delay. If we sent an email, we may follow up with text, or I'll alternate back and forth. But we do have automations hooked up as well. Some people just, as I mentioned, don't check email as much as they do text. I'm reverse. I check email more than text since it's on my computer. But some people love text, and that's how you get a quicker response. So absolutely, text, email, phone. Certain businesses will not utilize the phone as much, and that's okay. I'm a personal brand. I have no staff. You're working directly with me. But if it's a product, maybe it's less phone, but more direct mail and more email. So it's going to really depend on the business itself. Are you the face of the business? Is it something else? So it will definitely vary. But this idea of personalization and being different, and if you're going to send a postcard, you can buy these odd shaped postcards that really stand out when you're mailing something. Who the heck gets handwritten letters anymore? So those are the standouts where it's a pattern interrupt, right? That people are like, what the heck is this? Usually it's junk. I get the same stuff in the mail every single week. This is an odd shaped letter. It forces me to, and it's handwritten. They actually hand wrote is this a wedding invitation? Like, thank you or what? So it's definitely a pattern interrupt. And I think, I forget the gentleman. I think it's Jesse Itzler. Itzler, I think is his last name. But he talks about just being different. 5 postcards a day. Thought of you, was just watching the soccer game. I know you're a fan. What do you think of the odds of winning the FIFA World Club Cup? That kind of deal, and that sparked a conversation. So yeah, that's definitely utilize it all, and then don't overuse it. You don't have to send texts and emails every single day, but you can mix them up. Sometimes you could do an email followed by a text the following day, followed by an email, and mixing it up. I think that's a good cadence, and you test it, and you see what works, what gets better responses, and you can simply change everything up right in your CRM. I use Go High Level. A lot of people use Calendly. Very easy to change up the cadence, maybe delay things a little bit. Maybe you don't send things on the weekend. I love to send things on the weekend. That's when people are catching up around the house, distraction free from work usually. So I love to send not necessarily text, but emails over the weekend, and we get a pretty good response rate.
Okay. Now, I was going to ask you what software did you use for the text, but you just mentioned it, right?
Go High Level. A lot of marketing agencies will private label under their brand. So that's where it's a little confusing. So there's probably tens of thousands of different names that's been private label, but Go High Level is the platform. And usually you have a marketing agency that is maybe doing your marketing, your website, and also handling the CRM for you, and they'll get that set up. They offer best practices and things like that, and then you can cater it towards your business and your industry. So you may say you're a consultant. They typically will have some emails that they can kind of templates that you can use, and then you can customize them a little bit.
Okay, makes sense. So I will admit, I'm an email person and a phone person. I haven't set anything up for texting, so that's probably a missed opportunity that I could probably look into more. Yeah, and I do think it's one of those things that it's probably a little underrated, to be honest, because everyone is probably used to the email and they're used to the phone call, but texting is kind of still untapped to a certain degree.
Yeah, it's I think it's a little bit more difficult because, as I mentioned, with an email, you have an email signature and all that. And if you're texting, if I receive a text, multiple texts, the number comes up. I don't recognize numbers. I don't know anyone's numbers unless they're saved in my contacts. And obviously the name comes up. So you just may ignore it as spam or junk and move along with your day. So it doesn't hurt. It's immediate. Some people, for some reason, they just respond much quicker to text. That's just their style. And, it popped up on their screen. They respond to it and off to the next. So it's definitely worth it, in my opinion, testing it out and, not overdoing it, just like anything else.
Right. Okay. So Giuseppe, we're getting ready to wind down the show, but I always ask my guests if they have any questions they want to hit me with. But the question of why did I start the podcast has been banned from being asked from my audience. They've heard it like 30 times. So with the exception of that question, do you have any questions that you want to hit me with?
Yeah. So, we talk about side hustles, right? It's like some people consider a side hustle. I have a full-time gig, full-time job, and I'm doing business on the side. So, what is the secret of managing multiple side hustles? Because in the intro, per our conversations, you got a lot going on. You got the podcast, video editing. I believe in the intro, it mentioned Uber Eats, if I'm not mistaken. So what is kind of the secret in managing it all? Because these are completely different businesses. So, what advice do you have in kind of managing these side hustles to make them all successful?
Well, I say my first piece of advice is to pick a side hustle that fits with your personality.
Okay.
I think a lot of people try and do what's hot. But what if it's just so against who they are naturally? You're not going to keep doing it, and you're probably not going to make money with it because you don't like it. So pick something that matches up with your personality. And for people that want to know like more details about what I'm talking about, I talk about what type of financial personality you are in my book, The Anatomy of Financial Success. So once you figure out which one of those, and there's the builder, the preserver, the sniper, the king of the hill, the conservative, and the fame seeker. So which one of those you are, that'll help to inform you what your strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to making money. And once you have that locked down, try and find, you'll know what the common thread is in between each of these side hustles, and that plays a role in your ability to manage it. So I'll use me for an example. I am skilled when it comes to technology. So everything that you saw in the intro is actually involved in technology in some way. Like YouTube is involved in technology. Airbnb, even though that's real estate, it's leveraging technology to get people there. Uber Eats is probably the one exception because I guess it depends on who you are. I mean, you're using a phone, so
right.
Yeah, but ultimately, that kind of plays a role in your ability to manage it once you know what your strengths and weaknesses are. So you pick your side hustles based on your strengths and make sure that weaknesses are avoided, and then you can really go from there. And once you do that, when you build the income, you got to have an idea of how much money you want to make from this and how many hours you need to put in to make it. And once it goes beyond a certain amount, like don't go beyond 10 or 15 hours per week.
Right.
As long as that side hustle can make at least $1,000, then you can move on to the next thing. And before you know, you'll have a few different side hustles that can make between $2,000 to $4,000 per week,
right,
and maybe 20 to 30 hours. And some of it can actually be passive in the background if you know how to do it right. Like YouTube, even though I'm still uploading, I've had stints where I've gone like months without uploading, but the money didn't change because the content on the channels is evergreen.
Right. Good point. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I like what you said. It's skill sets, leveraging your skill sets, and we talk about the same thing. It's what is your skill set, and what can you leverage? What experiences do you have? Same thing in franchising. You don't need experience in the franchise, but if you are an extrovert and you're good at sales and presenting and podcasts and webinars and things like live webinars or TED Talks, those are the things. It's kind of do an audit on yourself. So I like that. Yeah, because I have one business and I have a handful of passive income streams. When I say passive, it doesn't require more than an hour or two a month, if that. In some cases even less. And this is I have one primary business, so I've had side hustles in the past, and I was always curious how people were able to kind of manage it all. But I think, you nailed it. You kind of cap the amount of time you're putting towards each, and with the common theme of, what's the skill set that you want to leverage. I think it's great advice because, most people just don't know where to start. So I think this is definitely a good starting point in doing a little audit, figure out your strengths, figure out the time that you can put towards this. Are you going to leave your W-2 or just leverage, have the W-2 as the base and have the side hustles, for nights, weekends, and time off. So it's a good exercise to work on over the weekend.
Yeah, I'll give everyone one universal side hustle. Like, it doesn't matter what your personality type is, you can be this. You could be a consultant, and what you consult on, you just find out what those strengths are, right, and then find different side hustles that are related to those strength areas, and try it out, become good at it, start making decent money at it, and then you're qualified to pass the buck to the next person for a fee.
Right. I like that. That makes perfect sense. That's I was curious once we started getting into the other businesses. So and I see people all the time. They'll have 5 different companies all in different areas and how they all manage it. I have not done that. So I'm always curious how they balance their time. And in many cases, they have teams in place where they can leverage maybe an executive assistant that is able to work with and handle all the businesses. So it's, I think as you get larger, having the right people in place to assist as well, or if they're not direct W-2 hires, maybe they're 1099s or virtual assistants or somebody to really help you, because ultimately, if your time is worth a couple $100 an hour, you don't want to do maybe some of the admin follow-up calls. You maybe have someone handle that for you, assuming you're in a position to do so. That's some great advice, and I always find that interesting.
Yeah. So with us winding down, where can people get more of you, Giuseppe? Like, feel free to drop your Instagram, Facebook, and obviously shout out your podcast too.
Sure. I think the best spot is GG, my initials, thefranchiseguide.com. All the socials are at the bottom. We have our book, which you can download for free, Franchise Freedom. We have about 250 episodes of our podcast, also called Franchise Freedom. You can type in just about any topic. And for those that want to dive into franchising, there's a 25 FAQs that we uploaded not too long ago, as well as a booking link. If you want to figure out if franchising is a good fit, it asks you 3 quick questions, and you get access to our calendar. Our service is free. I have nothing to sell. If you just have a general question, thought about franchising, it's been on my mind, we'll book a 20-minute call. We'll figure out together if franchising is a good fit, and if it may be a good fit, we'll sit down and figure out, what that franchise may look like based off of your income and requirements and skill sets and things like that. And we'll put together that plan. So GG, the Franchise Guide, YouTube, we're on just about YouTube, Pandora, iTunes. Franchise Freedom is the show. You can enter that there. And you get it's all me. I have no staff. So any questions you have, you get me directly. Would love to help you figure out how to either leave that corporate grind, leave that job, or, what I call hire yourself. Even, we can call it a side hustle. We can call it a side business. We could definitely help you, keep that job as well and find a business to eventually get into full-time. We can absolutely help.
Nice. So y'all be sure to check out his podcast and also his website. We'll be sure to link to that in the description and also the pinned comment on YouTube. That concludes this episode of the Side Hustlers Society podcast. Y'all already know I'm going to do the standard YouTube rhetoric. Please give me a thumbs up. Helps with the algorithm, and it's kind of mandatory nowadays for us to even get seen. It's very much appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. If you're listening to us on Spotify or other places where you can drop a rating or a review, if you could do so, that's very much appreciated. With that being said, we'll catch you in the next podcast. Be sure to be safe and be profitable, everyone.
This episode may be over, but your hustling journey has just started. Visit thesidehustlersociety.com to access all links and resources mentioned in the show that will help you on your hustler's journey.
Okay, so that concludes the podcast segment. Be sure to check Giuseppe's podcast out. He's a very cool dude, and he has a lot to offer. Just make sure, yeah, y'all can hear me. Cool, cool. But yeah, so that concludes the podcast segment. I did drop the link if anyone wants to join me on the live stream for Q&A, but we are going to move on to the reaction set of the podcast, or the reaction section, if you will. And we're going to be talking about some rideshare. So it's kind of getting back to the roots of the channel. In fact, some of y'all are even wondering, like, what do you mean? Don't you usually talk about Uber Eats back in the day? A lot of people don't actually realize that I started with Uber, with rideshare, because believe it or not, I actually like rideshare better. I went to delivery content because that's where the opportunity was, and no one was making content just on Uber Eats. But I actually like rideshare better. And apparently there's some controversial stuff going on there. So we're gonna pull up some stuff and react to it live. As a former rideshare driver, I'm probably gonna have some things to say about it. But if y'all have any questions, not just about what we're talking about in terms of rideshare, but just side hustles, freelancing, or one-person business, or lead generation, drop them in the chat. And if you want to come on the show, I've also dropped a link in the chat too, so feel free to do that. Let's go ahead and set up the first thing that I'm going to be reacting to. Starting off by changing the background, setting up the reaction format, if you will. Okay, we are good to go. So the first story is about people who are doing rideshare that are currently being deactivated, and I don't actually know any more details. There's just a large amount of drivers in a certain area claiming that they've been unfairly deactivated. Let's go ahead and pull that up, see what they have to say, and then I'll give my thoughts on it. Okay.
Getting a ride has never been easier. Open an app and minutes later, you're on your way. But some Chicago drivers say their work has never been harder, thanks to a city law that allows Uber and Lyft to fire them without warning.
Over the past 5 years, more than 20,000 Chicago rideshare drivers were deactivated, suddenly unable to drive for the apps. Some of them tell us they were dropped unfairly with no chance to appeal.
I just felt wronged, like I was violated, and I just knew like this can't be legal. This can't be right.
Sarisa Karan, a rideshare driver from Lansing, Illinois, with a near-perfect rating and 7 years of driving experience, was suddenly deactivated from Uber last April after a passenger alleged she spit on them, which she denies.
Oh man, it's kind of triggering. So, y'all do know I gotta stop and give commentary so YouTube doesn't flag the video. That's so we can maintain fair use. But yeah, she says she's this first person's been doing rideshare for 7 years, has a perfect rating, or damn near perfect. They didn't actually drop the rating number. I'm actually curious what her rating is. If you've been doing it that long, there's no way that these Uber passengers are going to allow you to have a 5-star rating. Maybe a 4.9 or something like that. You're going to get someone who just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. It's going to give you a 1 star just because they felt like it. But she's saying she got deactivated after all that time. Now, I say this, and it really hurts me to say this. I don't know the context of what happened yet. But we got to realize as drivers that this whole independent contractor like loophole that Uber and Lyft are using, it just makes it so easy for them to just deactivate you. So you never want to put all your eggs in like this one basket. And if you're going to, don't do it anymore like full time any more than a year. Like she's been on there for 7 years, and there's a lot of people in her position. Okay, it's not just her. I really, really, really want people to stop relying on these apps for full-time income on a long-term basis. There was a situation where I was doing a Uber Eats like years ago for like a full 9 months full-time, but it had a purpose. I needed to bring in the money and stay off the 9 to 5 long enough to build something. And then that something started taking off. And that the moment it started taking off, those Uber Eats hours started getting reduced to the point to where like the reason I was still doing it is because I wanted to gobble up audiobooks. It wasn't so much because I needed the money. So don't stay in this industry so long. Let's go ahead and keep going on what they're saying.
changed my life, turned my world upside down.
The single mother of 4 was also dropped from Lyft just 2 weeks later, despite the company acknowledging in a letter to Karan it had no information about the underlying incident. The dual deactivations were tied to a Chicago law, leading to what some call blacklisting. If a taxi driver is accused of a violation, the city holds a hearing to determine whether their chauffeur license should be revoked, but no clear-cut protection for rideshare drivers, who can be deactivated immediately after an accusation. That deactivation leads to the suspension of their chauffeur license, and in Karan's case, her livelihood, gone overnight.
My car was repossessed, almost lost the house. I just didn't have any income.
Last November, Karan filed a lawsuit against Uber, Lyft, and the city of Chicago over lost wages and an alleged lack of due process. Another driver dropped with little warning. J.C. Muhammad says he was unfairly deactivated from Uber after a passenger complained about his driving.
Hold on, before we go on to this guy, he's kind of commenting on the woman that just had the lawsuit. They didn't share if she won or not. I'm probably assuming she probably didn't, based on the laws, but I've said this several times. Rideshare drivers and gig workers and delivery drivers, ultimately another category needs to be made because they're not really independent contractors. When you look at what a real independent contractor is, they're not an independent contractor. I don't honestly think they're an employee either. There's something in between a freelancer and an employee. That's why I say just have a section that's called dependent contractor. We take some of employee and some of freelancing. But yeah, let's go ahead and hear what they have to say about him.
Who remembers that trip well?
I had a customer complain because she was trying to get to the airport and she wanted me to break traffic laws and do some extra legal things to get her there. And I, tried to get her there as fast as I could, but she was unhappy with that.
The day after, he received an email stating your account has been deactivated.
I think the problem with these companies who hire drivers is that they don't really give quite often any specific information about why they deactivate drivers.
Muhammad now.
Did he have a dash cam? Okay, here's what I would do in that situation. Not to say that he didn't do it, I don't know. But if you have a dash cam, which it's insane to do rideshare without any dash cam. You can make the case for delivery too, but I can kind of understand if you are doing deliveries without a dash cam. But rideshare, if people are going to be in your car in your private space, there's always the chance that they're going to act a fool. And I would categorize this woman as acting a fool, telling him to break traffic laws to get her to the airport on time because she was apparently running late. If he had a dash cam, he could have immediately sent that footage to Uber, showing that she's basically saying, hey, get me there as fast as possible, break traffic laws. And he's showing that he didn't break any traffic laws. Then Uber would have the context, and maybe they would not deactivate him, or they might reactivate him if, how can I put this? If he submitted that footage, it would give them the best case to get reinstated, given that she was making that kind of like trying to get him to break traffic laws, which is obviously illegal. But it sounds like he didn't have a dash cam, and that dash cam can be a make or break in a case like this. So before you even think about rideshare, get a dash cam. For those of y'all don't know, a dash cam is one of those things you attach to your car, the inside of your car, and it's recording you and the passenger. And let them know you could have one of those stickers on the outside of your car that says smile, you're on camera. And they'll just be less like, here's a question for y'all. And let me know this in the chat. Do you think she would have even been saying that stuff if she was being recorded? Yeah, if she was being recorded, would she even be talking about you need to break traffic laws and stuff like that? I don't even think it would have came up. She probably would have sat there just looking like irritable, but she couldn't get mad at the driver for not breaking the traffic laws since it wouldn't have came out of her mouth. I'm just saying. Let's keep going.
Volunteers with the People's Lobby, a nonprofit working to pass the proposed fair share ordinance that would establish a better appeals process for deactivated drivers and would also raise their wages.
We want there to be a process by which the customer feels like their concerns have been heard and the driver feels like their concerns have been heard. And right now, I don't think either group feels like their concerns are being heard.
In order to be heard and be seen, rideshare drivers took to the streets surrounding City Hall last month.
They drove here in the busy streets of the Loop to call attention to this problem. Rideshare drivers' jobs disappearing from beneath them, And we learned that these drivers have little chance of ever getting their jobs back.
A Freedom of Information request filed by DePaul Center for Journalism, Integrity, and Excellence found that of the 20,000 drivers dropped off the rideshare apps since 2019, only 3.7% were reactivated. The law.
I can see that if you get deactivated from Uber or Lyft or really any of these companies, the chance you're getting reactivated is extremely low. Now that 3.7% she mentioned, or 3 point whatever percentage she gave, it's a low percentage. It is going to be those people usually who are fighting. They submitted the dash cam footage. They built a case, and Uber in return got the information they needed and decided to reinstate them. I guarantee you, Uber didn't just do it for the sake of doing it. Those drivers put in the work to make it happen. That's why, once again, you need a dash cam. I also want to say that if y'all could like the video, give a thumbs up for the video for the YouTube algorithm. Greatly appreciate it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe if you're new. What's up, Donald? Great show. I'm learning a lot. Hey, I try. I'm glad that you learned a lot from the show and what the information that's being provided. Okay, let's see. What else do they have to say? I will say this. It looks like they're pushing for something similar to what Washington has, Washington State. If I remember right, they have something like this where essentially they have protections for drivers, and they also have like a minimum amount they have to be making per hour. And if they don't make it, the companies have to make up the difference. There's a name for it. I just don't know what it's called. And in California, they still have the Prop 22 where they have to get paid a certain amount. And if they don't get paid a certain amount per active hour, if they don't make that money in that hour, Uber has to supplement that income and bring it up to a certain amount every 2 weeks, which is cool. So they're pushing for something like that here. That's what it looks like.
Law specifies categories for deactivations, some being serious, such as sexual misconduct, DUI, and other illegal acts, while many deactivations fall into a category that some criticize as vague.
I'm getting calls from hundreds of Uber and Lyft drivers. So many of them get deactivated for this like catch-all, you violated a public safety concern, but there's no explanation.
The People's Lobby says they have a supermajority of aldermen support for the proposed ordinance, but some alders question whether fixing one problem could create another, including Alderman Jason Irvin, who says that drivers should have the opportunity to ensure any deactivations are done on a fair basis, but is mindful that wage increases could lead to dramatic cost increases for passengers. Uber did not respond to any of our multiple requests for comment. For its part, Lyft said it updated its appeals process for drivers facing deactivations in 2024. But a lack of accountability is having long-lasting consequences, according to drivers who've been kicked to the curb.
It was heartbreaking. Like, it's still sad when I think about it because I'm still dealing with everything that took place.
After this interview, Corinne settled her lawsuit with Uber and won her fight to be reinstated. Corinne is still suing.
See, what did I said that earlier? Did I not? I just said that those who are fighting to be reinstated are the ones that get reinstated, and she did. I'm actually glad that she did win. I was kind of doubting if she would win based on the law, but Uber does just have a habit of settling every time they're sued. A lot of these tech companies, if they're sued, they settle, just automatically settle. I don't even want to deal with it. So I'm glad to see that she won, and she is proof that if you're willing to put in the work, you can get reactivated. The problem is a lot of people, I wouldn't want y'all to be put in a position to have to put in that kind of work to get reactivated. I really, this is talking from someone who's a former rideshare driver. I got to remember I started with this, but I built my side hustle skills, if you will, with the video editing, with the consultations, with YouTube, and later Airbnb, to where that income was just optional. And if I was to, quote unquote, well, first, if I hop back into rideshare, because I'm not actually doing it, let's say I hop back into it and I got deactivated, it just wouldn't be at the top of my priority list to do all this stuff because I wouldn't have to. So I say this, make sure you're building something on the side when you're doing the rideshare thing, if you're going to be doing it full time. And even if you're doing it part time, I would still be trying to replace that part time income with a trade or skill. Let's finish out what they have to say.
Suing the city of Chicago, which asked the judge to dismiss the case, saying no city policy caused her injury. Meanwhile, time is ticking for rideshare drivers and the fair share ordinance they support.
If it isn't presented to City Council until the end of April, organizers say it may have to wait until next year. I'm Aaliyah McFadden.
And I'm Ryan Hinsky from DePaul University Center for Journalism, Integrity, and Excellence.
Now to this. Tonight, a courtside reporter for the Atlanta.
Oh, stop. Okay. So, one last thing I want to say about the rideshare story. The council person or the politician that was opposing basically this bill passing for rideshare drivers in Chicago, he said that, yeah, drivers should be able to oppose being unfairly deactivated, but he's hesitant about increasing wages because they'll increase passenger costs. Well, for one thing, that's actually not guaranteed because how much Uber takes on each trip varies so much. See, there used to be something called a rate card where you would know how much you're getting paid from Uber because you're getting paid per mile. So you could look at the transaction and see how much you got paid, how much Uber took, how much the customer paid. But all that information is steadily vanished over the past few years. To where like you look at essentially the transaction and it just says like fair. What the hell is fair? You don't know how much they took. You don't know how much the customer paid. You don't know what surge was. None of that. So Uber often is taking a lot more. Like how much they're taking varies so much. Like they might take 20% one time and 10% another time. And there's no real way to contest this and say, well, are they taking this much? Because it's not disclosed. So for all we know, Uber could be taking a lot more than they need to and just pocketing the difference. And if this law is introduced, then that's essentially just giving that money that should go to the driver back to the driver. You see what I'm saying? And even if it did raise rates for passengers, you know what? I'm going to say this. This is where I'm biased as a former rideshare driver. I don't think that's such a bad thing. But at the end of the day, if drivers aren't been, there is no Uber service without drivers. So if they're not well taken care of, that's a problem. So that means customers have to pay more. So be it. I don't think they would have to based on what I said. I think Uber's take rate is too high in the first place because we don't even know what it is because it's not even disclosed on the rate card anymore. Next up, we're going to pull up another video. And it's going to be the last thing we're talking about in terms of the rideshare. But apparently, someone sent me this. Fight breaks out between an Uber driver, Atlanta sports reporter. And people want to know, well, what would I do in this situation? I haven't seen this. So let's see.
Now to this. Tonight, a courtside reporter for the Atlanta Hawks and the Dream says that she was attacked by her Uber driver.
She says it all started when she asked the driver to roll up the windows and turn on the air conditioning.
Oh, this is the reverse. So the Uber driver attacked the passenger? Okay.
Our Chase Howell spoke with her and the Uber driver as both have very different accounts here about what happened.
Yeah, I know, baby. I just wanted a cool Uber. That's it. I just wanted a cool Uber. Call the cops or refund my money. Because
this is cell phone video of the moment an Uber comfort ride turned into chaos.
What did he say? Did she say call the cops or refund my money? Oh, yeah, by the way, all these videos that I'm reacting to, these will be linked in the description, just so y'all know.
The driver, Miracle Smith, and the passenger, Tabitha Turner, can be seen going at it when all of a sudden, Smith sprays Turner with mace, forcing her to drop her phone.
I just wanted to go home after work and see my daughter.
That's Turner. She says she wasn't only physically assaulted, but is also receiving backlash after Smith took to social media about the incident.
They flooded my social media with threats.
Okay. This is what it looks like to me. And please chime in the comment section your thoughts. Based on what I'm saying, I don't know who started the argument, but apparently a situation arose to where the driver refused to take her from point A to point B. And she's saying, okay, well, refund my money or call the cops. So she's refusing to leave the driver's vehicle. And she ended up getting maced and the said incident occurred. Well, if that's the case, the easiest thing to de-escalate the situation from the passenger perspective is to just simply get out. And I don't know if the driver did something inappropriate. But if she did, I guess report her. If she didn't, okay, give her a 1 star or whatever, or just move on with your life and request another Uber. But you decide to stay in the car and create a scene, create a problem, and technically that's against the law. If the driver doesn't want you at any point, regardless of what you've done as a passenger, and they end the trip, you got to go. Okay. Maybe she didn't end the trip. I really want to know what's going on here.
Reached out to people I work with and work for.
But as the saying goes, it takes 2 to tango. And this video shows just that.
When people watch this video, when some people do, they're willing to say, listen, you were asked to get out of the car multiple times. You also called her an R slur. You're not so much a victim, but an instigator. Sure. How do you respond to that?
There is no one who's going to watch this video and come away from it believing that my client instigated this thing in any way.
Why are you in a car if you feel threatened? This is what I do for work. This is how I'm paying to go to school. Like, I would never attack any passenger that has ever gotten in my car. I just wanted her to get out of the car.
That's Smith, and she says she sprayed Turner with mace in self-defense because she saw Turner pull out some sort of sharp object. Next thing you know, Smith says the two are out of the car, and Turner begins to attack her.
So the bite mark is like right here, right up above the end of my jawline on this side. And then for my eye, I have stitches here.
Oh.
And then the blood vessels in my eye are bruised and healing currently.
Needless to say, the police were called, and since then, a warrant has been issued for Smith's arrest. She tells me she plans on turning herself in Wednesday night. In Atlanta, Chase Howell, 11 Alive News.
Well, right now, only Smith is facing criminal charges. As for any future action, Tabitha Turner's attorney says that he plans to file a civil suit against Uber. An Uber spokesperson sent us a statement saying, quote, "Safety is fundamental to the Uber experience and conduct like this is not tolerated. We've removed those involved in this disturbing incident from the platform. And while we continue to investigate, we will support law enforcement however we can."
Things just
okay.
Hey, what is up? Welcome back to my channel.
Hey, pause. Okay, so some quick questions. Uber said they removed those involved from the platform, right? So did they remove both the passenger and the driver? Yeah, I want to know that. We already know they removed the driver, but did they remove the passenger? If they didn't remove that passenger too, that's the problem. That's information that I don't have. My general consensus is, at the end of the day, both are in the wrong, but I'm blaming the passenger more because you could have just got your ass out the car. I would say that she instigated that. And then she pulled out the cell phone thinking that that's going to be like the magic. Oh, I'm going to record this and I'm going to pressure you into doing something. And look, some people aren't built that way. They don't give a fuck about like this phone. And she got maced for it. Honestly, no, I feel sorry for the driver, to be honest. I don't feel sorry for the quote-unquote victim. I think the driver even said, like, why are you in my car if you feel threatened? Like, I think that says it all right there. Hey, it's stuff like this. Oh, well, let me round it out with this. This probably could have been saved with a dash cam. Now, you want to whip this out and paint the whole situation for the world to see, right? The big problem is the driver doesn't have her part of the story based on what we've seen. If there was a dash cam involved, you best believe that news station would have pushed to show that dash cam footage to show her side of the story too. But it looks like that isn't in the equation. So all they have is the passenger side story. And that's why it's so muddled. Drivers, please, for the love of God, get a dash cam if you're going to do this. I don't care if you're going to do this 1 hour per week. Don't let anyone in your car until you get that freaking dash cam. This probably wouldn't even been an issue. That passenger probably, whatever started the beef, she could have just said, I don't feel comfortable anymore. I'm just gonna request another Uber and got out the car. She probably acted a fool because there was no dash cam. At this point, I'm starting to sound like a broken record as far as that dash cam. It's just, I got to realize that I'm passionate about this. I used to be in this situation. Well, no, I've never had anything negative happen in my car rideshare driving back in the day. But I'm saying emotionally, I have been in the situation as a driver where, hey, I got to do this, to make the money, and it's not a good place to be. So at the very least, get that dash cam and try and get out of this industry as soon as possible. Yeah, but that actually is going to be the conclusion. I don't think I can take any more of this rideshare stuff, to be honest. But in terms of reaction content, that's where we're going to cut it off. If y'all have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And if you have any, not if you have any, if anyone wants to hop on before I call it quits and have me some dinner, I'll wait a few more minutes. Feel free to, and drop in the chat any questions that you have. There we are. But yeah, overall, I'll say this was a pretty good show. We had the podcast segment with Giuseppe, talked about following up as a freelancer or a one-person business, or really just any business, how you follow up, why it's important to follow up, because a lot of people just don't follow up nowadays. They take this abundance mindset too far, in my opinion. Okay, if someone says no to me right away, just move on to the next person. When there's a process you can go through to determine, is it a no permanently, or is it just a no right now because the time is off, and maybe a month or two later, timing lines up and you could have yourself a client. But we went through that, and we also covered some rideshare content, what's going on in the news. A shout out to Show Me the Money Club from the rideshare guy, Chris and Sergio. They talk about the gig economy a lot, and rideshare driving in particular, and they reach out to them if you get deactivated, because they'll do what they can to try and contact Uber to help you get reactivated. Now, that's not a guarantee, okay? I'm just saying that they'll have more advice on the situation on how to get reactivated. I know I told y'all need to build your case in order to get reactivated, but I'm not going to tell you I know all the steps. They know all the steps, so definitely check them out. But that does it for this stream, this Money Monday stream. Don't forget to like the video. Greatly appreciate it. Helps with YouTube algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. And of course, if you want to get chapter 5 of my best-selling book, The Anatomy of Financial Success, it talks about the different types of income and overall what types of income you should be working for based on what you want out of life. You click the link in the description or the pinned comment. Grab that. And I will catch y'all in the next live stream, which will be next Monday. Peace out, y'all.